Hi, my name is Juliana. Thank you for being here today. I'm here to introduce our presentation on genes, environment, and evolution. I've done this presentation with my classmate Michelle Rivas, and this is for the Psychology 103 class at University Canada West. So we're going to start this presentation with the basics of biology. Here we're going to learn three important terms: genes, chromosomes, and genotype. So genes, they are sequences of DNA, and these sequences are located in the chromosomes that are located in the nucleus of a cell. They control several characteristics in the human being and in all beings. Basically, they control things like hair color, eye color, skin color, and etc. So the chromosomes, they are long strings of genetic material known as DNA. And the DNA is always located in the nucleus of cells, and we have several cells all over our body. And the genotype is a term used to describe the alleles. Alleles are a variant form of a gene, and the genotype is the genetic makeup of an individual, and this genetic makeup is used to describe the individual's characteristics. Now, there's also something called phenotype that my partner is going to explain in the next slide.
Finish with genes, we have three concepts. The first one is phenotype, that refers to an individual observable traits. A phenotype example can be height, eye color, and blood type. A person's phenotype is determined by both their genomic makeup, which means genotype, and environmental factors. Second, we have polygenic. That is an individual observable traits controlled by more than one gene. An example of polygenic can be height, eye color, skin color, etc. And third, we have heritability, that it can be a statistical representation, and it's basically the proportion of variation among individuals that can be attributed to genes.
In the field of psychology, many researchers connect gene and environment because they interact among each other. That means someone's genes, an individual's genes, and the environment where that individual is put in connect and interact and affect behavior. That is why this interaction is so interesting. So there are many approaches, many theories about this interaction, and here in this presentation, I'm going to talk about three of them. So the first one is called range of reaction. The range of reaction theory says that the genes set a potential limits and the environment determines how much of that potential is achieved. So that means when an individual is established in a stimulating environment, their genetic characteristics will have better chances to achieve full potential. And so that means basically that when they are established in a impoverished environment, the potential of the individual will be limited, and vice versa. To find out about this conclusion, they had an experiment with rats in laboratories, and they put rats in impoverished environments and in enriched environments, and they were able to conclude that enriched environments were much better to help the rats to achieve full potential. This is really interesting because it affects all behaviors. And another example would be that the intellectual potential of someone will only reach full potential in an environment where that is stimulated. So if someone has intellectual potential, that will be much better stimulated if the person carries on with studying, maybe going to school, university, other than if the person doesn't live in an environment where that is enforced. Another gene-environment interaction theory that I am going to highlight here in this presentation is the genetic environmental correlation theory. This theory also agrees that the genes influence the environment and the environment influences the gene expression. And this theory relates a lot with parents and children. That is because this theory, according to this theory, the parents' genes, which are shared with the child, so the child has the parents' genes obviously, they influence the child's environment. And this environment becomes well suited to support the child's genetic potential. So a good example is when it comes to several talents, be it musical talent, sports talent. It has a lot to do with this theory because, for an example, if your parents are music instrumentalists, it's very likely that the children are going to have genetic potential to be musicians as well. And if this children grows up in the same environment as their parents, that will be reinforced by the gene-environment interaction. The third gene-environment interaction theory that I am going to present here is the epigenetics theory. This theory is based on the study of identical twins. That is because identical twins, they develop from a single fertilized egg. This egg splits and creates two people, two babies, twins. This is the key point for this theory because the fact that these babies come from the same egg means that they have the same genetic code. That is really intriguing because the idea that they come from the same genetic code would make it seem like they would be complete same, like similar people throughout their whole lives. But the fact that gene and environment interact with each other makes them become different people, even though they have the same code, genetic code. So this theory is a lot about gene variability and how the same genotype, in this case the twins genotype, can be expressed in different ways. Genotype isn't fixed and limited, as in the first theory of the range of reaction. In this case, the genotype is more open and not limited. In the case of identical twins, when they develop, they end up expressing themselves differently. For an example, one of the twins, they can be more prone to get cancer, the other one can not get cancer. One of the twins can be more extroverted, the other one can be introverted. These differences can happen even when they live in the same environment, and the environment activates or silences the epigenomes of these twins. So it's the environment decision to activate or silence certain parts of the genetic code of people, of these twins.
Evolutionary psychology. Humans have gone through a long path of evolution that made us what we are today. And the evolutionary theory says that the habits and cognitive traits that helped your ancestors survive have likely been passed down through the generations until making their way to you. It assumes that many of your core behaviors and information processing are a result from evolution. In simple words, the evolutionary psychology is the study of the evolution of behavior and the mind using the principles of natural selection. Natural selection is the natural process by which organisms better adapted to their environment tend to survive and reproduce more than those less adapted to their environment. Natural selection and adaptation. Now that we have a concept about natural selection, we can know why it's related with adaptation. So here we have a few points. The first one is that genes selected during our ancestral history give us the capacity to learn and adapt to varied environments. The second point is that genes and experience, both combined together, wire the brain. The third point is that adaptive flexibility in responding to different environments contributes to the ability to survive and reproduce. And the last but not least point is that evolution impacts human sexuality based on unconscious motives to be able to survive and therefore reproduce. Evolution and behavior. Evolutionary psychology focuses on how universal patterns and cognitive processes have evolved. And evolutionary psychologists study various psychological phenomena that may have evolved as adaptation, including fear response, food preferences, mate selection, and cooperative behaviors. The theory of evolution indicates something really important, and is that not only do physical characteristics evolve, but some behaviors and diseases also do so. So, an example of behaviors would be fear of predators, anxiety, etc. And if there is a disease, for example, if someone has a disease such as Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, anemia, etc., that person has a higher chance that the person's children, were more likely to get it as well. Evolutionary perspectives, male and female sexuality differences. We have male and females different perspectives when it comes to sexuality because it's based on unconscious motives, as I talked about before, and this is to ensure successful reproduction. And we have a few points here, and the differences are that men tend to be more attracted to more beautiful women. They really take into consideration the physical aspect in that part. Women tend to be more attracted to physical strong men because if they are strong, that means that they have more capacities to survive, reproduce, and become a father. And men prefer women with signs of fertility. Um, Women prefer loyal men with power and resources. And these things happen because men want to create offspring and women want to ensure the well-being and future of their offspring. And also, men are more likely to think that casual sex is acceptable than women. And also, something really important is that evolution is not always perfect. Mutations exist, and basically, mutations are random errors in gene replication. Criticism of the evolutionary perspective. Everything can be perfect, right? This theory has some criticisms, such as that some psychologists believe that is narrow-minded, that is not covering enough. Another point is that it can be understood that people only want to survive and pass on their genes. Another point that I have here is that we are product of nature and nurture. Genes are definitely powerful, but culture can surpass them. And the last criticism that I have is that individual development is influenced by several factors such as biological factors, psychological factors, social factors, and cultural factors. I really hope that you liked the presentation and that you learned something new. These are the critics and the references that we rely on to get the information. Thank you so much.